Breaking news in the ACC, and that is that the ACC is very close to expansion. As we told you on the show yesterday, and as Pete Thamel, ESPN College Football Insider, tweeted today, Calford, is that what we're going with? Stanford, Cal, and SMU are very close to being added to the ACC. And I think one of the more interesting parts of this equation is that SMU is now willing to not take 5 years, but according to Pete Thamel, 7 years of no media rights payouts, which allows the ACC to compensate Calford, Stanford, and Cal, because as our sources told us yesterday and we reported on the show, Cal is in no position to take zero money. That just is not an option. Stanford has made it very clear that they do not want to do that, but they would be open to it. Well, now with SMU, and I don't know in the history of sports that we have ever seen somebody so desperate to get into business with somebody else as SMU is with the ACC, that they are willing to take 7 years of zero media rights payouts. That money will then be split in a full share to Stanford and Cal equally, which means everybody in the ACC is making a ton of money. It makes too much sense. So, Jake, does that mean it won't happen?
Yeah, I think that the financials on this whole situation are crazy. I mean, the idea that we have any institutions willing to take 7 years of no media payout is absolutely insane to me. And I've always maintained that SMU having that position, really highlights, institutions' desire and I guess priority on being in a P5, even if it means you're not getting paid, because then, you can sell that and you can make money other ways on being in a P5. So I look at it and I say, yeah, like, SMU is kind of that thing that is allowing all of this to take place because, the ACC has to be able to pay for Stanford and Cal. And it's really still, I think we can't forget about this concept of, it's amazing we're even talking about Stanford and Cal being in the ACC just on its face because of the geography. So to me, yeah, I do think that there's a good chance this happens. I think that Stanford needs a P5 or a P4 home. They need to be in a power conference. And as for Cal, unfortunately for Cal, they're in the financial position they're in. If they were in a much stronger one, I think this would be done already. I think they'd be a lot more attractive. So to me, I just look at this situation. I say, yeah, like, we need to get finality on this because ultimately you have other options for these Pac-12 schools in the waiting, obviously, in the Mountain West. And I think it just comes down to the fact that Stanford just won't entertain that idea. They don't want to be getting paid $10 million, or $8 million, whatever that uptick in revenue would be from CBS.
Right.
So Stanford's not interested in that. So to me, yeah, I think there's a good chance it gets done, but I still, it's not guaranteed, I guess is the point. And there are a lot of people now nationally who are saying that, oh yeah, there's a meeting and they got to figure out the financials and the money, but there's much more momentum now than there was a week ago. So to me, I just think that it all comes down to who's willing to pay for what. And Stanford has a reputation that precedes itself, which is why they're in the conversation. And it's really just how much pain are you willing to put up with when it comes to Cal if you're the ACC.
It is shocking to me that SMU is willing to take zero money for 7 years. Why? And I want to have a real understanding. I know we have a huge following in Dallas, and I know there's no SMU fans in Dallas, but okay, I'll stop.
Tarrant County.
But I know we have a lot of SMU fans on this show. I want to understand this. Why are you okay giving away potentially $280 million at a minimum? Why are you okay with that? It makes no sense to me. And yeah, you get access to bigger games, but SMU has shown no willingness to do what needs to be done to win football games or basketball games. I don't understand it. What is the value of the ACC to SMU and SMU to the ACC? I can't figure it out. And frankly, I think the only value that exists here is it allows the ACC to get into business with Stanford and Cal, which academically, when you look at Carolina, Duke, Vanderbilt, like the academic staples in the ACC, you feel like it makes sense to add two titans like Stanford and Cal. But SMU only is a facilitator here. It's pathetic. And I'm not trying to be inflammatory, and I'm not trying to be a jerk about this. It's truly something I've never seen before. In an era where cash grabs and money means so much, the idea that not only will they pass on 5 years of media rights payouts, but 7 years, that's money you're never getting back. That you're never going to make that money back. It's pure insanity to me, and I could not sit here if I was advising SMU. I could not sit here and advise them to do that.
Well, and that's why I say I'm just curious what their strategy is, because I have to think that they're in the camp of, okay, the status of being in the ACC would allow us to do other things and make money other ways. And again, it continues this narrative of, hey, if you're just getting paid on TV money, you're not getting paid enough money. You're not doing a good enough job of generating revenue. And that's what I think the conversation really is with ACC expansion, where it's like, okay, we have schools that are in different financial positions. You know, SMU is a school that has to forego revenue to even, have a seat at the table. Stanford is a institution that everybody wants academically, but has some reservations about geographically, right? So every school has a different challenge, but I think that what all kind of brings them together is a P4 status, being in a power conference. And so for Stanford, it makes sense because Stanford was already in what was a Power 5 conference. But for SMU, I want to understand the play, because a lot of times we sacrifice things to get opportunity in other ways. Hey, I'm not going to, like with the Apple deal for the Pac-12. Hey, you're not getting, guaranteed money up front, but Apple's projecting that you're going to sell all these memberships and it could be better than what the Big Ten has, right? Like that was the Pac-12's play allegedly. So we're seeing schools get creative, but I don't believe that SMU is going to come out here and just all of a sudden recoup, a $30 million TV distribution.
Yeah, I don't see it.
That's crazy.
I don't see it. And you're going from what, $8 million, I guess, was the payout for SMU last year? You're going from $8 million, which is not an insignificant amount of money.
For SMU, that's a good amount of money.
You're going from $8 million to zero for 7 years.
Yeah.
You're never making that money back. You're not. And I 8 point whatever, I think it was $8.2 million is better than $0.0 million.
Yeah.
It's insanity to me. And again, I simply of SMU, and if you watch this show on a daily basis, you've heard me say this 1,000 times. SMU has not been relevant in the AAC on any level at any time. What makes you believe you're going to go to the ACC and all of a sudden have access to the college football playoff? You goddamn mind.
Yeah, maybe
because that's not happening.
Maybe that's part of their thought process. And I don't even disagree with you, but maybe that's what SMU is saying. Because I'm not trying to say that their angle is smart. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just trying to define what the angle is. Because it really, when you make decisions like this and you take, unconventional approaches to business and college athletics, like, we need to understand what you're trying to do here. So are you just simply trying to get a certain status so that you can sell, or are you saying that, hey, if we get Power 4 status in the ACC, we're going to recruit better, and then we can, our donors, I think you said that was the the nomenclature they wanted to be called, donors, our donors can help fund our athletic that's what I'm saying. I just don't quite understand what is the why outside of being.
I don't know.
It's different when, like, with San Diego State, you could at least with San Diego State be like, okay, this is a program in the Mountain West that you can see projecting into the Pac-12 and having success on some level, right? Like, you could see that. You could see them being maybe even a mid-table team in the Pac-12. SMU just hasn't done anything. And so you're basically joining a conference with the notion that, yeah, we'll do something once we're in a conference? Like, is that what we're saying? Because I think that's tough to sell, but clearly they've accomplished selling it.
All I'll say is SMU better continue to build their basketball program because I think football is so far and beyond down the totem pole in the ACC, and that's in a non-football conference. And I continue to go back to this question. When was the last time a G5 went into a game of consequence late in the season and won a big-time matchup?
Yeah.
And it just does not happen. It has not on a regular basis with some one-offs. And again, Appy State, Michigan, that was in September. That was not a no. Everybody wants to point to that as like the bell cow, and hey, that was a one-off situation that happened in a very small space in time. It's not something that happens on the regular, and I don't care if it happens in September. I'm talking about like college football of note. When and Tulane, we talked about this on the show yesterday, Tulane beating SC in a bowl game. Do you really think that bowl game was anything more than a scrimmage?
Yeah, isn't it the ultimate marketing angle? Hey, we beat SC in a bowl game that SC wasn't even really interested in.
I'm amazed by it. And again, I will say SMU had better continue to build their basketball program because that's all I can think that SMU's interested in.
But do we see SMU behaving the way Brett Yormark is in the Big 12? Do we see SMU trying to put together other opportunities outside of TV, like, tournaments or other stuff that might make them and whoever the participating schools might be? Because that's all I can think. Like, I sat around last night and I'm like, okay, what is the angle? What are we trying to do? Like, I understand on its face you want to get into a power conference. I get that. But to what end? Because again, with San Diego State, I understand it. Even like a Boise State, I understand it. You get it. Hey, you're a good program. Like, you need more reach so you can grow. Okay, I get that. But SMU, to your point, yeah, they've done a bit in basketball, but it's not like they're a power basketball. Like, they're not Gonzaga.
No, but they had a decent argument, and we talked about this again. I'm sorry to be redundant. SMU had an argument for the tournament. They didn't get in.
But do you see what I mean?
Because
they're
again,
on the fringe.
they don't have brand. They don't have sway. And I'll go back to their donor money. Their donor money means nothing in the NCAA tournament selection process. I am amazed that you're talking about donors willing to spend, and we talked to one of the biggest donors at SMU a couple of weeks ago, and he said we have $200 million in a slush fund to support athletics because we want them in the Pac-12 or the ACC that badly. And when I said, well, for what? There was no answer, because I think everybody recognizes that within that, and let's call it 7 years, within that 7-year window, will they be ranked in the top 25? Will SMU football, in their first 7 years in the conference, when they're taking no media rights dollars, will they be ranked in the top 25 one time?
I mean, it's almost impossible to say yes. Like, but again, this takes me back to other crazy coaching hires and aggressive moves. See, again, and this is what SMU's trying to do.
Yeah.
They're trying to say, hey, let's get into a Power 4, and then let's make an aggressive, let's almost like turn the light switch on. Like, we'll go and hire our Deion Sanders, and then we will, yeah, sure, we've got the slush fund to support athletics, but then let's put a little more money just into the football program to grow it and to get it to where we need it to be. I mean, I just... It wasn't surprising to me that when we had that conversation, there was no answer to for what? For, like, what are you going to do in the ACC? Are you telling me that your basketball team is going to contend with UNC and Duke and Virginia and, all these awesome, like, come on.
The SMU contingent that hangs on to TCU wins in football or Houston wins in basketball. What does the win over Houston mean? Well, Houston wasn't a Power 5 program. Houston was not in the Big 12. Houston has not played a Big 12 basketball game. Houston, yes, was one of the best teams in the country. It's a good win. What did it get you? And I continue to ask this question. It goes back to Tulane and USC. It's great Tulane beat USC. Everybody recognizes that USC was demoralized in that game. They very clearly, the laundry list of excuses for USC is a mile long.
Yeah.
Ultimately, in the end of the day, Tulane won the game.
Yeah.
But is anybody crying or bleeding heart for USC at USC about USC? They're not.
No.
That game was of zero consequence. USC had their sights set on bowl game and big bowl game wins. And what did it get Tulane? Because Tulane's not in anybody's conversation. They're not in now a dead Pac-12, which we're going to get to in a minute. They're not in the ACC. They're not in the Big Ten. They're not in the Big 12. They're nowhere.
Yeah, it feels like they missed the window again.
And they beat USC. Congratulations.
Yeah.
And it's meaningless. If that game was in November, I could at least make an argument it had an impact on USC's season. The bowl game had zero impact on USC's season. They're a top 10 team. What are they, 6th in the country right now? We haven't even played a game. And chances are USC's not going to lose a game until November this year. I have nothing against SMU. I just don't understand that this is a complete loss.
Yeah, and I think SMU fan takes it that way because it sounds negative, but it's not negative. It just is like, it's like, dude, like I'm trying to understand. I would love for someone to explain to me what the angle is, because again, if you were taking the TV money, then I could say, okay, great. Yeah, you're going from 8 to 30. Totally get it. Totally get it, dude. $22 million uptick.
Yeah.
I understand. But you're not getting that. And you're having to cover your loss of $8 million in addition to that. So we're going from $8 million to minus $38 million. Like, you understand that. So, yes, you're going to get the distribution, but you're not getting paid for it. So are you saying...
You're giving away $31 million a year. Because if the payout was, the ACC payout's 39, I think, let's call it $39.5 million.
Yeah.
You were making 8.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not taking the 8. And you're not taking the 39.5. So excuse me, you're giving away $46 million a year combined. And at a minimum, you're giving away $39.5 million a year, which will probably tick up. Now, you would think. It makes no sense. So are you telling me that you have boosters who are going to cover, and let's call it $40 million, round up, $280 million over the next 7 years?
My fucking ass.
What are you getting for that? I am amazed by it. So if you go to the end, let's say basketball keeps upticking for SMU. You go to the NCAA tournament. What are those 6-year rotations on payouts? You're going to take no money from going to the NCAA tournament. So you got nothing out of going to the ACC. And because I could see SMU building a basketball product. Now, hey, we get to play Carolina and Duke. Okay, I'm here for that. But for the next 6 years, you get zero money, even if you get into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's wild to me. All right, let's compartmentalize. Let's keep on the ACC here for a minute. 20 minutes or so, we'll get to the Pac-12 news today. Stephen Smith, first one in, says, I have on my calendar a reminder for when the Pac-12, Big Ten, and ACC either formed the alliance or when the alliance fell apart on August 24th. I don't know if that is coincidence or something else. There never was an alliance. And this is, I think, the alliance, the scheduling alliance and this operational alliance thing that you had with the Pac-12, the Big Ten, and the ACC was one of the greatest failings. Remember, there was never any paper on it, no contracts,
remember
no
what George's
agreements.
answer was? He said, yeah, we have a handshake deal, man.
Congratulations. You don't exist. It was one of the biggest failings in George Kliavkoff's disastrous tenure in the Pac-12.
Back to the envelope calculations.
Stephen, I think it's a very interesting point. Connor Cole for $4.99. Good afternoon, fellas. Quick question. If Emory Jones plays well with Cincinnati and their scary defense, what's your over-under on them?
On to Cincinnati.
Not high. Like, we had a long conversation with Scott Satterfield at Big 12 Media Days. He's absorbing, I think it's 4 wins. I think it's 4 wins, and we've talked quite a bit about Cincinnati, and I still maintain that Scott Satterfield's a fantastic hire. I think he's got an impossible gig.
Yeah.
Let's be honest about it. But if you look at Cincinnati's schedule, I mean, it's a meat grinder, dude. Just look at, East Carolina, there's 1. At Pitt, loss. Miami of Ohio, that's 2. Oklahoma, let's see what Oklahoma is, because that's a game you could potentially win at home. At BYU is a loss. Iowa State, that's 3. Baylor, that's probably a loss. Okie State in Stillwater, that's a loss. UCF, that's a loss. Houston, I'm a big believer in Dana Holgerson in Houston. I'm going to give you a loss on that. West Virginia, I think, should be a win.
Yeah.
And I don't care where you play that game. That's, what is that, potentially 4 wins right there. And Kansas, I mean, I could see beating Kansas at home. I could, but I think East Kentucky, Miami of Ohio, Iowa State is 3. I think West Virginia's 4, and maybe Kansas is 5. I think 5 is probably top of the mountain.
5 is a realistic over-under for that team.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very difficult to go to BYU and win for Cincinnati, just because of the environment, the atmosphere. It's the first Big 12 conference home game at BYU.
Cincinnati.
I think Kalani is going to have them Cougs ready to just claw your jugular out. I think it's going to be very difficult. Cody Shipman, who's been a member for a month. Thank you, Cody. Appreciate that. What is the ACC? That's why they want to do it. It does raise the bar. The ACC is a basketball conference, is what the ACC is.
Yeah.
Does Stanford football and Cal football help? Sure. I think it makes them money off the field and court outside of academics.
Yeah.
I think anytime you raise the academic bar with number 3 in the country academically, Stanford, and Cal's not a pushover, I think that helps you. There's no question about that. But notoriety, for certain, it does. Aim for the Bushes gives us $10 to say, please, guys, no hate.
Hey, guys.
Just trying to give you the info you've been asking. You specifically asked, when's the last time G5 walked into Fort Worth and won? Well, we said in November, a game of consequence. SMU has 2 in a row there, but you blew up on me. No, we didn't blow up on you. What we said was, we're talking about games of consequence.
Yeah, something that matters where both teams are engaged.
Something like a notable win of significance, which SMU does not have and has not had. That SMU, again, I'm just saying, SMU in football is irrelevant. And I know that you got all that cattle money and all that oil money and all those hats. I get it.
No oil, bro.
We get it. But what have you done in football? And I'm tired of hearing about, well, they're going to let us get off the mat from the death penalty. You've been off the deck from the death penalty for years. You've got nothing in football. Basketball, I could make an argument that, again, I think last year you had an argument to be a tournament team, frankly. But we'll see. Aim for the Bushes gives us $10 more. When's the last time SMU beat Houston in basketball?
Hey, guys.
SMU beat number 6 Houston a year ago and should have been in the tourney. Well, but they weren't. Finished second at 23-8, but snubbed. Memphis was third and in. SMU beat Memphis twice that year. But, okay, so why did Memphis get in and SMU did not?
This is the answer SMU fan doesn't like.
SMU's irrelevant. SMU does not move the needle. SMU does not bring people to the TV. And I love the argument that SMU delivers Dallas. It doesn't.
Oh, dear. Oh, my.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
And we can sit here and you can hold on to SMU beat TCU in Fort Worth. Congratulations. But the University of Texas is Dallas. TCU is Dallas. Texas Tech is more Dallas than SMU is.
Yeah.
SMU in football is irrelevant. Basketball, I pretty much said the same thing you said, that you could have made an argument to get them into the tournament last year. But they didn't get in because there's no brand there. There's no value there. There's no sex appeal there. Nobody's fighting to get SMU into the tournament.
Yeah.
Memphis with Penny and that story and that market, and that was compelling. Memphis football is compelling. There's no question about it. I don't know. I'm not, and I feel bad, like I'm kind of being an asshole, or I'm not at all trying to do that. Not at all.
Yeah.
But if we sit here and we have an honest conversation about what value does SMU bring, and this idea that beating TCU in Fort Worth, those games are not of consequence.
It's really unfair.
Was the win at Houston of consequence? The answer is no. It was not of consequence.
Yeah.
Not to Houston and not to SMU. Those are simply facts.
Yeah, man.
So,
and I think it's hard to take. Like, I understand why whatever this guy's name is, trying to ride
I'm
that
assuming
point.
you're an SMU fan.
You must be, yeah, which is fine. But,
I'm assuming.
But yeah, it's hard to take if you're an SMU fan. But again, this was always my point about, like teams or not teams, universities and their football programs right now with realignment and finding a new home. Dude, winning's been prioritized on one hand, and then on another hand, it's not as prioritized. Like if you're an obvious candidate, if you're Oregon, winning doesn't matter as much, right? Because you're Oregon. But if you're SMU, winning means everything, because then you have the ability to say, hey, dude, yeah, we're not Oregon, we're not UNC, we're not Clemson, but we still win, and we can be relevant in your conference, But SMU hasn't really done that. Yes, they've won a couple games here and there, but it's not enough where you're like, yeah, dude, like that particular program could be a big time problem in a Power 4 conference.
And by the way, TCU last year, came to University Park and beat your ass in football, 42-34. Like you lost to TCU at home. So you went to TCU and you won, but you can't win at home. So are those TCU? That right there is exactly what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I'd also point out that you lost to Maryland, TCU, UCF, Cincinnati, Tulane, and BYU. Your record against – is this really the argument that you want to have on SMU? Like, football is not the place to go to defend SMU.
No.
It's not the place to go. It's not the place to go. Football is not the place to go. And I get it, aim for the bushes. I agree with you on basketball. Patrick Despain for $20. Thank you, Patrick. It's only taken 35 years for SMU to recover from the death penalty. Do you think the, quote, naughty nine in Sherwood Blunt want a do-over? Hey, man, a lot of what they did is now legal.
Mm-hmm.
So Mark Thorpe for $10. If they add 3 schools, does that make it an odd number in the ACC, or does it actually even out since Notre Dame? I think it evens out because of Notre Dame. And I don't think that you need – with Notre Dame not being there in football, I just don't think it's of consequence.
Yeah.
So I think it works out perfectly. 10 more from Aim for the Bushes. SMU also has 2 ACC basketball champs. If Dykes hadn't betrayed, probably could have competed in football too. Probably, okay. Not stellar, but certainly good enough for the ACC. You're not. You're not good enough. Honest to God, you're going to take no money for 7 years if this actually happens.
Mm-hmm.
Will you be ranked in the top 25, AP top 25 in football in those 7 years?
No.
How will you get there? How will that happen? And Sonny Dykes didn't betray anybody. Sonny Dykes did not betray anybody. So, but that's just me. Lance Johnson, recruiting and SMU has deep enough pockets to withstand the $60 million loss over 7 years. Okay, so recruiting. I can see recruiting helping you. But at what level are you recruiting? Because it's not the recruiting that will make a difference for SMU, it's the development.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to beat another P5 school to 4- and 5-star kids.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You got to build a juggernaut on a budget, dude. I mean, you got to build, you got to, like, if I was SMU, I'd be trying to build that basketball program up as much as I could. Make some waves in the tournament. Get notoriety, get some attention.
Yeah, absolutely. T. Higgins is a badass.
Oh.
Gives us $5 to say, breaking news, SMU changing school names from Southern Methodist University to Stupid Money University. Hey, man, I wish I had
Nick, can you
$280 million just begging for a purpose.
Hey, guys.
I mean, if anybody would like to pay me $40 million a year, please just DM me.
We'll get it done.
We can do wire transfers, automatic, no problem. Payment plans, hell yeah. Delaric, it will take 10 years for SMU to start to consistently be in a top 25 football or basketball men. 5 for women. They want in a P4 to have options for the future. Has to be.
And that could be, but yeah, man. Look, I'm not the guy that's even. I don't even hate SMU. I'm not,
no.
And neither does he. I'm not saying you do. Like, I just think that the case isn't strong right now. There's not a lot of places to go. There's not a lot of angles. And I do think they understand this. Their primary value is not taking the money right now, and
Correct.
they've got to change that narrative. If this happens, you got to change that narrative over the next 7 to 10 years into, hey, yeah, SMU didn't take money for 7 years, but during that 7 years, they sold their ass off and they grew that basketball program to a point where they're a tournament team every single year. I mean, that's what you have to be in basketball to be known. Like, you at least got to make an appearance every year.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. I think this is, I don't know. I said yesterday this is as close as the ACC's been, and I believe that. I think SMU bumping to 7 years turns the Carolinas into a yes. And I think Miami will go. I think the Carolinas will go, and then it's a fait accompli. It's done. That's
that was
my
a big
opinion.
word, bro.
What?
Whatever you just said.
Miami?
No. Fait accompli or whatever you just said.
A fait accompli?
Bro, like, I don't know what you just said.
I believe you said a fait accompli.
No, I did not say that.
I believe you did.
Donnie,
man.
you're out of your element.
Yeah, review the tape, English major. Luares, what's up, my guy? Gives us $5. Oregon State, Washington State to the Mountain West. Gloria grabs Memphis and Gonzaga. Would be a best G5 football and Power 6 basketball league. Mountain West 4-bid league last 2 years.
Gonzaga.
Mountain West has been very nice. Very, very nice. And San Diego State's run to the final last year was freaking amazing. Amazing. And the funny thing is, San Diego State was willing to leave that tournament money behind to get into the Pac-12, which is crazy. Ryan Thomas for $2. SMU is the desperate easy girl in high school. Well, I don't know. I mean, let's not,
Just so you can go to Pound Town.
Thank you. Travis H45, if SMU gets in Power 4, add Marshall too. Seriously. Byron Leftwich still got a limp. That means nothing to you. You don't even, were you boiling in the bag when Leftwich was being carried down the field?
No.
I don't think you were. Raven gives us $5 to say, in all honesty, Memphis is a much better addition to the ACC than SMU because Memphis brings the Memphis market, and people in Memphis watch Memphis. They do.
Sounds like a lot of Memphising happening.
Yeah, well, but Memphis also, you guys remember the BYU South Beach Bowl brawl? Like, Memphis doesn't care who you are. Memphis will slap the taste out of your mouth. They don't care. So Memphis has an edge and an attitude. Memphis basketball is a brand, however tarnished. But Memphis, I think Memphis is a really strong candidate that is very much Tulane in the fact that they're not getting in this round. And I don't know that they'll ever get in.
Yeah.
I think as fascinating as this round of contraction and expansion has been, the next round is going to be wild, dude.
Yeah.
Wild. Charles Chamberlain wants you to know that, well, actually, fait accompli is French, Monty. Thank you. Oui.
Boy, that took a real genius to know that one.
Yeah,
sir.
we'll all